Hello all and welcome back to my channel. If you're a fan of high-level chess drama, grab your favorite beverage, sit back and relax because today we have an absolute treat. We are traveling back to the third UzChess Cup Masters 2026, looking at a sensational round 5 clash between the brilliant young Uzbek Grandmaster Shamsiddin Vokhidov and none other than the former World Championship challenger Nepomniachtchi. So Vokhidov is playing with the white pieces and Nepo has the black pieces. Let's see what happened. e4, c5 and knight to f3 and d6. Bishop to b5 check. Vokhidov avoids the main lines of the opening Sicilian and opts for the Moscow variation. It's a very solid high positional weapon favored by players who wants to bypass mountains of theoretical preparation. Now comes knight to d7 and d4, c takes d4 and knight takes d4, knight to f6 and castling. Now g6, preparing for bishop to g7 and rook to g1 and bishop to g7, black preparing for castling. Now bishop to f1, white drops the bishop prophylactically. This is standard positional chess, safeguarding the bishop before black can strike at it and keeping the center tightly controlled. Now knight to c5, attacking the pawn on e4, f3, supporting the pawn on e4. Now castling, now black castles and bishop to e3 and d5. True to his dynamic style, Nepo does not like to sit around. He immediately strikes in the center with d5. Now e5, attacking the knight on f6. Now knight retreats to e8 and f4 and f6. Knight to f3 and b6. Preparing for developing the bishop on c8, knight to c3 and knight to c7, h3 and bishop to b7. Both sides are building up the tension. White is holding a spatial advantage in the center while black is trying to chip away at it. Now e takes f6 and here Nepo makes a somewhat surprising positional decision. Now e takes f6. This is an inaccuracy. The engine vastly prefers recapturing with the bishop to keep black's pawn structure intact and clean. By capturing with the e-pawn, Nepo voluntarily accepts a structural weakness. Vokhidov pounces on this immediately with the f5. Beautiful positional move. White clamps down on the f square, completely exposing the g6 pawn and making sure black's king pawn structure remains fractured. Now queen to d7, attacking the pawn on f5. Now b4, attacking the knight on c5. And now knight to a6, f takes g6 and h take g6. Now a3, supporting the b4 pawn. Now rook 8 to e8 and queen to d2. Preparing for bishop to h6. Now knight b8 and rook 8 to d1. Now knight to c6 and bishop to c4. Here black cannot play d takes c4 because the queen will be lost, bringing the bishop alive with a nasty pin on the d5 pawn. And now knight to e5. Knight takes e5 and f takes e5 and now knight takes d5. Vokhidov slips up just a tiny bit here. Bishop to f2 was a more patient and controlling alternative. By liquidating immediately, he allows black a glimmer of hope to simplify into a holdable endgame. And bishop takes d5 and bishop takes d5. Queen takes d5 and queen takes d5 and knight takes d5 and rook takes d5. And now rook to c8. We have entered a major piece endgame where white is a clean pawn up, but black has active rooks which gives Nepo drawing chances. Now rook to e2, supporting the c2 pawn, and rook to c4. Black is preparing to double the rooks. Now rook to d6, attacking the pawn. Now rook to f6 and rook to d8 check. Now rook to f8, hiding the check. Rook e to d2, doubling the rooks, and rook to c3, attacking the bishop. Now rook 8 to d3 with support and rook f to c8 and now a4. White pushes his queenside majority. Now look closely at black's next few moves because under severe time pressure the position completely unravels for the super GM. Now bishop to f8. This is an inaccuracy. The active e4 was called for, creating counterplay. Now b5 and e4, attacking the rook. A bit too late now. Vokhidov gladly accepts the trade. Now rook takes c3 and rook takes c3. Now king to f2, supporting the bishop. White's king steps up to defend and black is running out of options. Now bishop to e7. This is a blunder, and there it is, the decisive mistake of the game. Nepo needed to keep the rook active with rook to c4. Instead he plays bishop to e7, which allows white's rook to penetrate with devastating effect. Now rook to d7, attacking the bishop. Now bishop to h4 check. Now g3, attacking the bishop. Now bishop takes g3 and king takes g3 and rook takes e3 with a check. King to g4. Look at this king. Instead of retreating, Vokhidov's king marches forward into enemy territory, completely safe from perpetual checks because black's own pawns block the path. Now rook to f3 and rook takes a7 and king to f8. Now a5. The a pawn is a runaway free trade. Now rook to f6, supporting the b6 pawn. Now a takes a b6 and a rook takes b6, attacking the b5 pawn, and c4. And in this final position, Nepo resigned because black is completely paralyzed. White's connected pass pawns on the c and d files combined with the runaway e pawn are completely unstoppable. A masterpiece of positional squeezing and endgame conversion by the young Uzbek star. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my channel, do like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.